Okay, so how does this work? So first I went to my textbook. So this is the textbook explanation of how this genetic engineering is done. And so what they do is at the top is a little piece of DNA that has all of the nucleic acids lined up, indicated by those letters. And so you put an enzyme in there that cuts specifically between two of those amino acids. And so it cuts out a segment of your DNA that hopefully has the genes that code for whatever it is that you want, making spider silk, for example. Okay, you take that little piece of DNA now, and it has ends that will preferentially stick into the same spot then on the DNA from the organism that you're putting it into. So now you splice the DNA of the organism that you're putting it into, and you mix in the pieces of DNA that you cut out of your carrots or whatever, and you hope that they stick into that particular spot. So if you're successful, now your rice DNA has a little piece of carrot DNA in it, and now that carrot DNA will code for producing beta-carotene or spider silk or whatever else it is that you want to do. And they've done this into bacteria. It's very easy in bacteria because bacteria DNA is a little circle and it's easy to splice it, and bacteria are very readily take up pieces of DNA. They do it all the time with each other, naturally, and so they were the first organisms that we did this with. And so what they've been able to do is get that bacteria to now produce things like insulin. Insulin was something that we would extract from pigs, and so we had to slaughter a lot of pigs to get enough insulin to treat diabetics. Now we can grow the bacteria in culture that produce that insulin. And so it's not all bad. It can do some good things. That's one example of a good thing. And so this is also then being used in bacteria to make drugs. It's being used, and our issue today is whether or not we should be altering food, crops. What's behind it? What are our aims in altering food, in altering our food animals? Okay? And then finally, it's also used in treating disease. And so, for example, if a person has a piece of DNA that's damaged or it's missing and they can't produce a certain protein that gives them a disorder, can we then splice that piece of healthy DNA into them so that they start to produce that protein and can be normal, okay, and can be a healthy individual. So there's two sides to the coin. There's the beneficial stuff, but then with that, there are risks as to how you do this and what the results are. So what I'm going to give you now is what the situation is right now. So these are the main crops that have been genetically engineered. They've been genetically modified. They're out there. They're on our shelves. We are eating them all the time. They are things like canola, corn, and the main things that they have spliced into them, the idea is to have herbicide resistance. So now they can spray, and it's called the Roundup gene. So they'll splice that Roundup gene from that, the weed killer Roundup, a resistance to that toxin is put into those plants. So now they can spray the field with Roundup, basically, kill everything that doesn't have the genetically modified resistance, and they don't kill their corn or their soy or their canola or whatever else. So they can treat the field with pesticide, with herbicide, and not kill the target crops. So that's the idea behind that one. The other thing is to control insect pests, and so they have genetically, they have inserted a piece of DNA that makes the plants produce a toxin. And so now the crop plants produce a toxin that is toxic to insect pests. So now the insects that would usually decimate a field eat the plant and die. So it's like an insecticide that's inside the plant instead of spraying it on plants. So the upside that the companies want you to believe is that now they don't have to use as much pesticide because it's already in the plants. They don't have to waste the money, and they don't have to poison the environment by putting the pesticide in there. But there's problems with that. Okay, it's not really working the way that they are saying that it's supposed to be working. So those are the two main things: is the herbicide resistance and being toxic to insect pests. And you can understand how that would be a huge boon to agriculture, to big business agriculture. And we're talking here about the big agricultural companies, not your little farmers market farmers, and I'll tell you why that is.